All right, we're on YouTube, sir.
Yes, welcome.
Hi,
Happy to be
Shane.
here.
Thank you so much for coming. A lot of us are customers of you, but I have such an array of followers. Can you give us a little insight into Gabriella Plants, where you've come from, and what you're doing?
Yeah. Um, I wow. Well, where do we come from? Well, the business has been in my family for 3 generations, so it's been a long time that our family has done this, and I kind of took it over from my dad in 2017 because he changed careers, and Gabriella Plants kind of was born out of just finding the internet for the first time and kind of coming to that. And what we are now is 23 amazing people who make up Gabriella Plants and do what we do every single day, whether that's planting the plants that we grow, or shipping them or picking them out for the inventory process, applying pesticides, whatever the job is. All of us are on one mission, and that's to always be growing more, just like your shirt says.
That's right. I have this shirt from Gabriella Plants. I love it. My favorite thing about this shirt is this little GP logo right here. I love that.
Yeah. Does and in fact, we only put the extra sleeves or any designs on backs of shirts typically that are for merchandise, not for staff, just because they cost more to do it that way. But like when if I wanted to see somebody walk around to Gabriella's shirt, yeah, I'd want to see some bling on the elbow. I mean, I'm all about it.
I think it's really cool. Another thing that you do is, I mean, we all know you as the Pink Princess philodendron guy.
Yeah.
I get my calathea and my allocation from you. I don't know if you can see my big old fry deck here.
Oh, that's beautiful. How long ago did you get it?
I've had this since this spring,
Okay.
and it's already
Awesome.
just grandbabies.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. It's a really easy care plant. You have all sorts of plants. Can you also tell us about something that's really unique to Gabriella Plants, the Ghost Update?
Yeah. Well, the Ghost updates were kind of a name that I think somebody in the behind the scenes group had done. There's several other like industries that have used that term before when referring to releasing inventory at unannounced times, which kind of goes to the full story in like less than a minute. Is when I first started selling plants online, I did it as an experiment. I was operating a wholesale business at the time. So I did it on Etsy, and I was doing it on my own time in my own house, just doing it the best I could, buying boxes off of Amazon. I wasn't even buying like shipping boxes in bulk or anything. I mean, it was so terrible compared to what we have now. It was nothing. But as that continued to grow, we started to have more and more people messaging us, following us on Instagram and saying, when are you going to release more? When are you going to, especially on some of the hotter items, right? And I said, well, I can't answer all you guys. I still have to answer the work phone all day long. I have a wife. I can't answer every single DM, but trust me, every Wednesday we'll put out a list. That worked really, really well until there were more people showing up on the pre-announced time than the total number of plants you had to sell. Or in our case, we even had more plants than that, but our shipping capacity was something we had to wrestle with. So ultimately, the Ghost updates are pretty cool because they are the way that currently we are releasing a lot of our more uncommon inventory through Ghost updates. Because the truth is, if it's uncommon or if rare, in either of those categories, depending on what you want to call it. Either way, they're in that category because there's not a lot available. So we're normally just posting, maybe definitely less than 2 dozen, somewhere probably less than a dozen, every other week or so. So it's an easier way instead of thousands and thousands of people trying to go for the same 10 plants. It's a way for us to kind of sneak out some of that inventory to people and just surprise them too. And it's always cool to see people's reaction when they can get one through that method. So it's been fun for us.
Well, one of the things I really love about Gabriella Plants is, especially for an online seller, you guys do stock updates. You don't just have an auction website. And it's getting harder to find where you see plants listed for a certain price and you're actually able to get that. And I really appreciate Gabriella Plants for doing that. I love that you do that. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that works for you, or the downside for you doing it that way?
It comes with its upsides and its downsides, and I think that largely depends on what plant you're talking about. Because I think for the most part, I love what we're able to do, and I love that we're able to be what you appreciate. Because in my mind, I hope that that continues to grow in 2021. I hope we continue to be able to offer more and more. And even if we are somewhat hindered by the total number of people who are disappointed every week, which is probably the thing that hurts the staff the most through the process we have right now, is as much as it stinks to not be able to get the plant you wanted, it hurts our heart that we don't have more to share. If we had more to share, trust me, we would be sharing them. That's kind of the goal. So the whole idea of whether, rephrase the question.
Just talking about the ups and downs of doing stock releases instead of
Yes, the pre-announced and kind of having it and not going to auctions. Auctions are a lot of time, individualized photos, a lot of infrastructure we didn't have when it was just 2 or 3 of us, one, laser printer, just trying to figure out how to do, for a large portion of the beginning, we all kind of said internally every day to make ourselves feel better. We all in unison could say we don't know what we're doing. Just as a self-admission of like, hey, we're experimenting. This is going to fail. We're going to figure it out. And as long as we're, transparent with our customers and make it right with the customers, they were with us too through that experimentation. That all to say, we don't choose to do auctions because one, I think it feeds a lot more attention. And I don't think that plants need to be that way. I think that plants should be able to be something you go up to, a store counter and buy. And the reality is the reason a lot of people switched to the auctions was not only some more money, but also just, there's a multitude of reasons. But one of the things that they left out in doing so was that really worked when COVID had shut down a lot of plant shops. And there wasn't a lot of counters you could walk into and buy a plant like you normally would. And if our stock had sold out or we were at max shipping capacity, there's a handful, there's plenty of other good sellers too that, sell by stock. But for the most part, yeah, you're kind of left to the Etsy's or the auctions. That's kind of all you have left. I think as plant shops open up, you're going to have more of not even thinking about purchases. Think about all the plant meetups and swaps and things across the entire country that haven't been able to happen because of COVID. Or have only happened once this year instead of once a month like they had planned on doing. I think that all those things will help. The reason that we really do enjoy the weekly restocks is it really lets our team focus on selecting really good plants and prepping them for shipping, whether that's by removing some bad leaves, putting it in a certain area so that it can dry out further, or watering it in additional time, depending on what its needs are going to be before shipment. And then having a large amount that we can sell at the same time, do all the order combinations roughly at the same time, and then get to the business of shipping those plants. So it's worked really well for us in just the operational aspect. We do our own auctions on eBay, but I don't think you'll see us bring auctions to our own website or begin to sell any vast number of things on eBay. eBay, the one upside, I know this is a bit rambly, but you were also asking upsides and downsides. The one upside to auctions is the fact that you get the picture of the plant that you're buying. So when you're talking about a lot of the plants that can come in all shapes and sizes or variegated forms, what is a pretty pink princess to one, maybe the other already knows that, hey, I lost the half moon leaf last time. So, I'm looking for something in the mid range, but either way, it lets you know exactly what you're after. So I think that's a really good thing it does bring. The problem is then you're competing over price of that one specimen, which is why auctions typically are very pricey.
That brings me up to our next point. And the reason I actually hit you up was, let me just say, the caramel marble philodendron heard round the world. This fall, there were some restocks and it was really confusing. At first, I thought, well, I guess I can't participate in this sector of the plant community anymore. And then some other shops have had restocks in the fall and they have increased prices, but just ever so slightly, not 4 times of what they were this spring. So speaking to that, what kind of demand increase have you seen this year with COVID and everything going on in the plant community?
Yeah, I think that it's hard for me. I got asked this question once before too, and it's always a question I kind of struggle with because if I were, and I have no problem sending you personally, just because you'll probably find it fascinating, the website viewers by month graph. And without a doubt, there is a curve there, but the rough and exponential curve, the business, Gabriella Plants specifically, was already on, was basically what we did. Where we ended in total yearly sales this year was roughly what I said before the year began that we were going to hit. So before COVID, that was already kind of if we continue to grow at the exponential rate we did the first year, this is what year 2 looks like, and we nailed that. So in that respect, I don't think that we grew drastically because of COVID, and that's because we are only an acre of covered greenhouse. We are small potatoes. We
I
are
think
one.
people forget that too, because you are a huge online presence. You're a huge presence in the plant community, but you are a small business. I mean, essentially, you really are.
Yeah, I mean, it's 5 driveways away from mine. After I get off this thing with you, I will get back on the little 4-wheel off-roading ATV that we have for hauling around nursery carts and haul more plants that I planted in my backyard over there. And, you know, it's all in the family. I bought my grandparents' house right here. It's 0.2 miles away. So I can drive the tractor at Gabriella back and forth, which is very handy for yard work. But the whole way that we blew up, just to answer the question of COVID, without a doubt, COVID caused plant sales online to increase. What I think it did more, that I haven't even said this publicly yet, and I think you would find this fascinating. I think sales were most likely more, yeah, because we all were running out of things with COVID. It's the same reason why mulch sold out, right? Like none of us wanted to go mulch our yard until month 3, and then you're like, well, I guess mulch, like that was the next thing you could do around the house, you know. And I think for that reason, plants increased, because for anxiety, it's good to have something to take care of. It's good to be responsible for something and feel success when you're able to keep that thing alive and have that relationship. I think, though, with COVID, the biggest thing that it impacted was moving a lot of the plant community into the same single online plant community, whereas a lot of those plant community members, they were still card holding members of the plant community, but they just always went to their local shop. They always went to the plant swaps organized in their local city. They weren't involved in all the Facebook groups. So I think in some ways the social media end has really exploded, while the total number of plants sold, I don't think has gone up nearly the degree that the amount of discussion and attention brought to the plant community, because it was something we could all talk about at home.
All right, y'all, Terry is here to look at your guys' responses and questions, and I think he does have a question from one of our viewers.
Graduate with Leo. He asked, what advice, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see it.
I just know it.
What advice do you have for people trying to get those high profile plants? Do you believe waiting for, say, a Thai constellation is a good idea?
Thai constellation specifically, yes, because Costa has agreed that, or has said that they're publicly mass producing them. And I think whenever Costa, think about any other plant Costa has been able to. Costa, for those who don't know, maybe I should start there. Costa is, the United States has, and I haven't looked at the numbers in 2020 or anything, but last I looked, according to business Forbes, there was 3 or 4 over $1 billion or close to $1 billion plant companies. Most of them in California, one of them in Florida, Costa. And Costa is most of the things you see Lowe's and Home Depot sell. So when all the ZZ Ravens hit all at once, that was something that I saw growing at Costa 4 years ago. And when I mean growing on more acreage than the greenhouses are located on, not to mention the greenhouses. Like, I mean, just acres and acres of that stuff. So there's no wonder it's been something they've been able to do. So as far as Thai constellations specifically, absolutely worth waiting. And the ones that Costa is planning on selling are going to be like 8-inch or 10-inch plants. So if you want to get something smaller, maybe you would buy it, not holding out. But if you're all about the big Monstera vibe, definitely hold out for that specific plant.
And I think they actually announced that they pushed it back. I did contact them on their Facebook and they've pushed back their release of it to 22.
22 now. Okay.
22, yeah. So it will be a little longer, but that's one of the plants for me too. I never really thought that I would get it, but if it's going to become available like that, eventually I probably will get a Thai constellation, you know. All right, let's go on to the next question. This one's from Alchemy of Spirit on Instagram. They ask, how do sellers prepare for the varieties that are trendy?
That's a very good question. One, I should probably have a very sophisticated answer for, but don't.
That's perfectly all right.
We do have like Google Analytics tools and stuff that shows us not only what people are searching for on our website, but what people are searching, you know, the number of searches that had the word philodendron in it this week versus last week. Simple barometers like that, but nothing ultra sophisticated. A lot of what we grow, I mean, the stuff that everyone wants the most is the stuff that we grow ourselves from cuttings. You know, Rio is a plant that was original to us and originally mutated in our greenhouses and was kind of bred through, or not bred, but selectively cultivated till we had that as a very stable species. And so those things, you know, it's as soon as the plant grows 4 more nodes, we'll trim it again. We'll plant the 4 nodes and we have another 3-inch pot. We'll keep doing that as much as we can. Some of the other things we grow is based on what other nurseries that grow baby plants through the tissue culture process, what they have on their availability, what kind of relationship you can have with those people. That's really important. There's obviously been a lot of new names getting into growing, which by the way, is a great thing because we need more growers. But yeah, it's been harder and harder to source plants. So
on that note, Shane, you know, I wanted to ask this for my viewers. I am more in the horticultural therapy side. I don't have any plans to be a seller, but I have about 100 followers that this year are thinking about, maybe I want to start selling. I have a good collection. I'm good at growing plants. Just off the topic of the 2021 market, or maybe on it, because next year they will be selling. Can you give them any advice on how to maybe start or get their name out there?
Yeah. The one thing is you're going to get a lot of questions. The sooner you start, the better is the first thing that I always say. The sooner you can get to planting a plant, the better. You only learn lessons one way with plants, the hard way. And I would also add in there, I knew a seller a couple weeks ago, and I'm not calling anybody names. I just see, you know how Facebook does. It just gives you a random slice of the internet that you didn't know really why you needed to see, but it showed it to you anyways. But it was just this one person, and her statement, just, I don't know why my brain caught it wrong, but she said, I've in fact never had spider mites. And I was like, one, okay, cool. Then like, yeah, you're technically cool, right? No spider mites. 2, then would you really be the best person to be able to explain how to best get rid of them or like be that resource to your customer? And I'm not saying go find the most spider mite ridden plant and like bring it back to your greenhouse, but all to say, don't be afraid of the things that you're afraid of. Don't be afraid of the mites. Use it as a learning lesson. And maybe if you have a collection and that's kind of what you're thinking at first, probably don't start your plant business or start your growing inside, you know what I mean? Growing yourself as a grower. Don't start that probably by chopping up your pink princess, you know, start with some pothos or a heart-shaped philodendron, something easier to root in and, you know, grow those skills. You don't want to take that first chance on the plant, you know, you really, really can't do without, but you can't avoid mistakes. So the sooner you get started, the sooner you run into those problems, the better. And then very quickly, the second thing, contact your state Department of Agriculture. They will have somebody who is a local representative to your district that does 2 things. One, you're going to need it for nursery certifications for your own state, not to mention the states that are going to require soil samples in order for you to ship plants into their state without having to bare root them. But 2, that representative also in your county or your city or your area, they're going to know the other people doing what you're doing. They know the people who are 10 times the size of you, and they know the people who are 100 times the size of you within the vicinity of their district. So they will most likely have some of the answers to, do you know where the best place I can buy bulk soil is in Milwaukee? That guy will probably, if there is a place, that guy will probably know. So those 2 steps: 1, just get started as quick as you can. No lesson's a bad lesson. And then number 2, contact the proper authorities in the Department of Agriculture of your state.
I really appreciate you giving actual tangible things that people can do, especially going to the State Department. What I would say is do what you can with what you have where you are. You know, Barbara Walters, people, she knew it. Okay, let me get to the next one. Or do you have one?
Yeah, one question. I got a little one there. Danny's working journey.
Hey, Danny.
Wants to know if you have a favorite plant.
What's my favorite plant?
Yeah.
Well, Philodendron Rio always has a special place in my heart because I've just always loved that plant. And I was kind of the one who I convinced my dad to kind of let me start selectively cultivating that. And I later abandoned it, and luckily he kept up with it. And then I took it back over later. So that always has a special place in my heart. The second up would definitely be, I have 2 Anthurium pendulifoliums from NSE Tropicals that I was able to purchase from Enid over there. And one, I think the longest leaf right now is, I measured it at like 5.5 feet or 4.5 feet.
You're going to have to flex that.
Yeah, it's getting long. So I'm getting excited.
I love it. All right. The YouTube channel Proud Plant Babe asks, what do you think next year's big plant is going to be?
I think next year's plant is going to be plants that require less attention in general. I don't have a specific plant. First of all, I'm not psychic, so I don't know the exact answer, but my best guess would be just knowing the market of people buying houseplants, especially the newer ones, right? Millennials and that younger age demographic for the most part. Now, obviously, you have a lot of plant sales come from middle and retirement age people as well, but you know, kind of the fad group, the ones that got into it most recently, are in the millennial down category. And those people, I think, will, when they do go back to college, that's not where they were living. Their dorm room situation's different. I think when those people, all of a sudden their kid is going back to school, so now it isn't distance learning, it isn't being home all day with the kids, it's back to the normal routine of not having a lot of time at home anymore, which, by the way, may not happen in 2021 or may happen towards the end of 2021. Exactly. We'll have to see how the year goes. That all to say, I think as that, because it won't be overnight, as that begins to shift back, I think you'll see people go more towards Hoyas, more towards the Sansevieras, more towards the things you don't have to baby nearly as much, or the plants that can handle much lower light or artificial light. If you're going to be having a heart for plants and going back to your office with your cubicle, you're going to need the plant that will survive there and still bring that outside in for you.
That's a really great point. And that's something that I thought too, is eventually a lot of people that are into plants and sitting at home, we're going to go out. People are going to go out, and plants that need attention or can't sit for maybe a week when you go on vacation, like some of our philodendron can, they're not going to live. And I think people are just going to go, I'll keep the ones that I can keep, which is exactly what I do too. I keep the ones that will accept living with me, and the rest I don't try again.
Yeah. And if it works out better that way, you can find a plant a better home, especially if it's a special specimen. There probably is that person on the other end who is just as you were like, yes, I don't have to like witness this plant suffer anymore. And they were like, I never thought I was going to get one. You know what I mean? So it's always cool when you can pass it along.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to find your little community, find your tribe in the plant community, because I have met the most amazing people do this. I kind of did this channel just as a mental health thing during COVID. I started right at the beginning of COVID when we had to, and the people that I have met like you, it's just amazing. So don't ever be intimidated. Anyone who's watching this right now, I love my followers. I love my subscribers. You are welcome to contribute, from comment to collaboration with me. And Shane, I really appreciate you doing this with me, because you're really setting that example for the community, and I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I love getting to do these, and I love that what we have, and I don't even think we've done a good job of telling it so far. I think we've been too busy with, just like everyone else, 2020 just got away from us, right? The plans that we had, by all means, the year went in a lot of ways as we would expect as far as sales and things go, but in any other way, it all was different. We were supposed to launch a retail store this year. I mean, there was a lot of things that got shifted. So I think that as whether that particular thing comes back up on our radar next year or when it does, I'm also we will be doing some form, we haven't announced it yet, but a lot more media specifically around telling the stories of growers, better growers than me, and getting those interviews and those perspectives from people who have been doing it the longest. Because I think if the ones of our generation, my generation, that are going to be serious about it, we also need to be honest with ourselves that as much as Google has the answer for everything, in this specific way, Google probably doesn't have the answer for everything. It's the same reason why when you watch the YouTube video about how to just change out that simple oil filter on your lawnmower, and you totally thought you could do it yourself, and you followed every step and it still didn't work. And the one guy who's been doing it for 50 years shows up, hits it once with like the side of a screwdriver, fires it right up, and you're like, how did that even happen? Plants are oddly the same way. There's a lot of things that growers who have been growing their entire life do on such a subconscious basis. It's been one of the hardest things I've had to do at Gabriella was, for example, this is a really rambly, but I figure you'll like it. We recently automated the way that we can move our curtain motors on the sides of the greenhouse. So we can roll down a curtain when it's cold, we can rise it up. We also have to rise and lower them based on the degree of the sun, because the sun can bake through the side. So that is something that I've just every year or every year of my life, every day of my life, every time I'm at the greenhouse, walk into the first greenhouse, kind of look around, and without even thinking out loud, like, what is the daytime high? You're not thinking all those thoughts. You're just like, I give it another 45 minutes and I'll roll it up. Well, when we finally had my friend who does all of our AT, Curtis, and he's like, no, but I need like the written, like, what's the actual, like, when it hits this happens. And I'm like, oh, like, and that took a whole like week of just trying to figure out like, well, I guess you could say 3 hours after sunrise, like that would be equivalent if we can't like map where the, and all these things that I've had to take from that, I would have never known how to explain and put it on a sheet of paper. That's where my heart is, especially for the growers who know more than me. It's one thing for me to do that. I don't know that much. Somebody who's gone to other countries to see other growers and other people who hybridize plants.
So is this going to be on your, is this going to be a podcast?
It'll be a lot of, it'll be a lot of things, but we'll have more details on December 12th.
Well, we're totally excited for that. You just did a podcast here in Denver with my girls from Two Girls, One Plant podcast. So
they're amazing.
They are so cool. They're my Colorado plant pals. And any of y'all that are wondering about it, they are on everything. They are on, you can download their podcast anywhere. They're on YouTube, Instagram, and you will learn a lot about Shane. He actually does 2 episodes with them. It's completely binge worthy. So check it out after this interview. And okay, I told you I wouldn't take so long. So
no, you're good. I'm the one taking so long, and I recognize that.
Well, I'm fascinated, so don't even worry about it. Okay, with demand, pricing is obviously going to increase. From your involvement in the community, has there been any talk about plant pricing for next year? Is there any sort of Better Business Bureau or set pricing that you go by that we can know, okay, this is legit or this is someone who's trying to scam? And what I'm thinking about right now is Etsy half moon philodendron that was sold for, I think, $7,000. It was a special half moon philodendron. Can you give any of our viewers maybe some guidelines into the next year's market of what's legitimate, what's not?
Yeah, well, just as a joke, as a basic line of thought, always be comparing any decision or purchase you make of anything in your life with what else could I have bought with this money? Because I can think of a lot of things I could have bought for $7,000, like a lot of fun things too. Like you could get a couple dirt bikes or something. Like you could, that's a serious chunk of change, or at least one really, really nice vacation. So that's always something to do just to make sure you're checking yourself and where your priorities are. But for some people, the prices are up there. I would probably spend more than I'd be willing to admit on like a variegated Hudsonia. I haven't had the opportunity yet. I don't know that I would go all the way up to where they've ended, more recently, but I'd probably spend more than most people would think on that specific plant. Cause yeah, it's been something I've wanted for 18 months now. That all being said, I think that yes, supply versus demand equals price. That is how the basis of the market works.
And that's completely legit too. I think a lot of people forget, we see these high prices, but being a grower, you spend a lot of the year in expenses. You make a good buck during the season, but the rest of the year, especially if you are a seasonal, like the greenhouse that I worked at growing up, the rest of the year is all expense for you, and that's property that you have to pay for. So there are very thankless years of being a grower as well. But
all of winter. I mean, you're buying pallets and pallets of soil, you're buying pots, you're buying all the cuttings or baby plugs or whatever you're going to do. And you got propane bills, you have everything for the heating in the winter. I mean, yeah, you definitely do have an income cash flow in one portion of the year, and then a negative cash flow at the end of the year, because that is kind of the way it sets up. I think though, the thing you asked, how do you know if you're getting scammed? I would say the number one thing to do is don't start your search on Etsy or eBay. Start it in Google and see, even if they're sold out, see what the reputable people are selling them for.
Check out the greenhouses and the nurseries that are selling those varieties.
Right. Because the thing you see, and this is not a knock, and you kind of alluded to it, supporting growers. And I know a lot of people will probably think it's a little just, well, it's okay for me, not for other people, but I hope people see the heart in it. The people who need to be supported are the people growing the plants. The reason for most, and even the people like us who grow plants, we grow almost 90% of what we sell this year, we have grown ourselves. That being said, we still we are still kind of high on a few prices. But that's going to the grower who's going to be able to grow more, invest more. And what I have seen is that growers, and one of the things I ran around the industry here locally, telling wholesale growers, not the middlemen, not the plant shops, the growers themselves, who in a lot of cases were still making the same 2016 prices, just like I had been doing. And I was like, hey, you don't have to want to go into retail to raise your prices. But if you're calling me and saying like, yeah, man, I mean, my greenhouse is entirely empty, like they're buying stuff before it's even rooted in, like they need it that bad, then raise your price. And a couple of them did that. And I will tell you, it made my heart so happy to get to drive out to one of their locations and see them putting up new greenhouses at that location. Because I'm like, yes, that's what the plant industry needs. We need the next set of benches, more pots filled, more plants planted in that space. So I think that the greenhouses typically run on the websites. We have an eBay page. There are plenty of greenhouses that have Etsy pages. Absolutely. But the eBay
Etsy and small shops are absolutely legit, and they're great places to go. But if you are starting your journey to look for a plant, you want to start at the established places that have grown them for decades, like Gabriella Plants and the Pink Princess Philodendron. And you don't then go buy from an Etsy seller or someone who has a plant. It just gives you that good idea of what is acceptable for that type of plant, especially if it's variegated.
And Google is very, very good at, if you type in Pink Princess, like a 4-inch Pink Princess, I'm sure us and Logis fill up pretty much the entire first page of that search result. But if you search variegated Monstera, we're nowhere on the page because we don't grow it.
Right.
So that also helps you, instead of just looking at us to find a middle market price or just looking to your local garden center, Google will do a good job of kind of showing you who is selling them most often, because most likely the ones ranked highest on that first page are the retailers. If it was Logis with elbows, they're probably one that stocks it the most if they're ranked that high.
And also looking at reviews too can be very helpful, especially if it's a larger shop that has a lot of reviews. You're going to start seeing more honest reviews and less maybe friends and family have reviews.
Oh,
All right, Tear Bear has a question for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Danny's back. Little off topic. Wants to know what measures that you take to keep pests at bay when you have such a large crop to care for.
Yeah. Well, all good pest management starts with scouting, starts with finding problems before they become a bigger problem. One of the things, if I could change anything about our greenhouses, unfortunately, they're just too small. We would lose too much space to do this now. But we only have a center aisle walkway, whereas a lot of greenhouses will strategically put paved sidewalks on the exterior so that you can walk the entire perimeter of a bench. Either way, there's at least somebody from our staff that every single week will go up and down each bench looking for not only pests, but watering needs, looking for any bacteria issues, any other type of hazard under the bench, a dripper or a sprinkler that's come undone, anything that looks out of the ordinary. We try to communicate well via Slack. So the one most important thing is to scout early, to be looking at all your plants. Don't wait until you see them on the top of the leaf. Be looking at every plant every week. And one of the things you can do if you're unsure, and I gave this hint in, I think, an Instagram live at one point, best thing you can do if you're like, I'm not sure if this is pests or not, is rinse your plant off. If they are bugs, let them fall back to soil. Take a photo of your plant at 6 p.m. in the same spot, relatively same camera angle, make it easy. And then the next day, do the same thing at the same time. If you notice things that are now there that weren't there yesterday, yeah, you probably have something living that's obviously able to crawl around, and we should probably start looking at how to treat it. We do spray pesticides. Most of the pesticides we spray, nothing is in the highest danger category. Everything has like a 12-hour no re-entry period, and we follow the rules and regulations there, and normally give the staff the day off or time that out with staff to make sure that obviously no one's in harm's way. We do that in the summertime weekly, or every other week on occasion, and then the winter time, typically the colder weather, we don't have to do it every week, but we do it about every other week.
Okay, Sorority of Plants asks, can you give us an idea of varieties that you expect the price is going to increase next year?
That's going to increase?
Yeah. That's a hard one.
I don't know that is a how do I say this? I don't want to say it's not a good question. I don't know if that's the right perspective on the question. I don't think that any plant, or personally, I don't think any plant you know of right now is going to instantly radically change overnight. What people don't realize is that although some of the plant shops upped their prices overnight, the production rate of how many pink princesses, for example, we could grow this year versus last year, that was not changed. We grew the same number this year as we did last year. The only difference was the price. So don't let price be some, that's going to be based on how much demand there is. But so the answer to the question is, I don't think there's going to be any particular plant species specifically that go way up in price. I think the one thing you're going to see that is going to continue to be maybe a talked about thing in 2021 is how many of these species aren't identified, not even identified properly. I'm saying just unidentified species. How do you even list that? And what people don't know is you're trying to add all these things to your collection that you know the names of. And one paper I read from 2016 said that we roughly know of about a third of the philodendrons in the world. Let that sink in. I think as we find those, And as in the same way that we will find things in the wild, as people continue, especially new breed people coming out of, wanting to pursue this and hybridizing and creating new plants, I think those will be the things that have really high price tags. The last thing I'll say, which I think is the better perspective on this, and I've said this elsewhere as well, but I think it's really, really important to understand. Yes, there were growers in this year specifically because of the year it was that were able to add greenhouses, but by and large, greenhouses normally don't add. It's not like a yearly thing, right? You're not always adding new greenhouses. It's an investment. You do that for the decade, and then you figure out what you're going to do next.
It's literally more expensive than a house.
Yeah, they are pricey. And then you have to start with the irrigation, and then all the plants and pots and whatever else you need to actually make that space viable. All that to say, what people need to understand is that there will be a large number of plants that right now for us are in the uncommon category. I'm thinking of like maybe Burley Mark's painted ladies, as well as many Hoyas as well. Those will be available widely next year, right? Because those are some of the things that people wanted right now. So those are all going to show up on the market. There's going to be enough Hoya Lisas out there. Maybe not by January, but by the summer, right? Because enough growers are going to go, oh my God, everyone's been calling this year asking me when I'm going to grow Birkin. I got to grow Birkin now. And you're going to start growing those in a lag, because then you got to wait 6 months till the plant's ready. And those won't be available till the end of next year. But as growers, here's the important part. As growers decide to shift and now grow Hoya, the very, very common things we know right now, I'm not predicting this, but say rattlesnake calathea. By just pure happenstance, it wasn't an unpopular plant or a ridiculously popular plant, but everybody wants the Hoya, right? Like, got to grow the Hoya. If it just so happens that the 3 biggest growers that were growing rattlesnakes, all 3 decide to grow, or 2 of them decide to grow Hoya, one of them decides to grow a new philodendron with that same bench of space or that same greenhouse of space. Now, all of a sudden, by the end of next year, I know like all of you had a rattlesnake a year ago, but does anyone know where I can buy one? And now you have an uncommon plant that was an extremely common plant just a few years ago. I don't think that will happen for the pothos and the vining things as quickly, because it's so easy to propagate those. You don't need a lot of parent plants to quickly scale production on like a neon pothos, for example. But a lot of the other plants, for when you start growing something new, you're sacrificing what used to be on that bench. And I do think that's something people need to be mindful of.
Okay, next question. Nusha from Instagram asks, what are some rare plants you expect that will become more widely available? Which you kind of talked on this a little bit, but that maybe are rare and expensive now, but just because, like you said, they've become popular, more places are growing. Do you know of any varieties per se that are becoming more widely available this next year?
A lot of the alocasias that weren't are becoming more widely produced. Not yet.
I see that you have Alocasia aslanii
Yes.
on your website now,
Yes.
to use everyone so that you're well aware, and they're available the last time I checked.
Yeah, I think I have like 5 more after whatever sell. If they did sell out, I think I have like just 5 more. That was just one that a grower friend of ours had like 30 of each kind, and I was like, yeah, I'll take them. And we actually, spent quite a bit for them. That's kind of why their price tag was pricey too. But those specifically, I don't know how mass produced they are, but they're starting that process. And that's the thing that I think people need to, or I guess I'm repeating myself now, but the additional note I would say as far as which plants will become easier, I think most of the philodendrons will become a lot easier. I think a lot of the Hoyas from Q1, Q2 of 2020 will become very, very widely available. I don't know so much because now there's definitely more of a trend to the unidentified or the project named Hoyas and stuff. The much harder to find. Nonetheless, confirm your ID if you are a grower like us. I have a few that I've been told are this or that, but I'm not confident enough to say that yet right now, because a lot of the Hoyas do look really close without their blooms, and a lot of them are just different based on their bloom. That all being said, I think those are some things that are going to become a lot easier. The thing that I think you should just remember that you are sacrificing something if you switch to what you're growing, but also it takes, if somebody has a lot of something, if we have a lot of a plant, if we have a lot of a plant, right? Like a lot of cuttings of a plant, we can scale that fairly quickly and continue to exponentially grow that. But if you start with one plant, the timeline to get that to market is minimum of 2 years, probably, even with advanced methods like tissue culture. Like it still just takes wait, because you don't want to give the tissue culture lab your one, right? So now you gotta wait for one and then somehow subdivide it, or somehow at least just get two, so you have some form of insurance policy. Maybe keep one at the bank storage box and the other one at your house or something. Like, just if you're, the only one with this plant. But I think that the plants will go down and up. Your whole theme of this thing, to wrap up, was what will 2021 be? And I think it will be a lot of plants that used to be uncommon will become common, but not the stuff you're thinking of now that's uncommon. It's going to be whatever you were wanting to buy a year to 2 years ago. And that's on a rolling basis, right? So in June will be a year ago, June. You see what I'm saying? I think people just need to remember there's a lag of those plants coming to market. Otherwise, they'd be to market. So it's going to take time to grow all that out. Be patient with it. But it's a lag time, but it does catch up, and it will catch up.
All right, finally, our whole community wanted to know what Gabriella Plants has in store for 21. Are you introducing any new varieties, or can you let us know when you're going to introduce any new varieties?
Yeah, well, obviously, Gabby is another Philodendron heteroraceum sport that we've been selectively cultivating for a long time. We haven't sold many in 2020, just a few auctions here and there, but we will have those in a much better mass sale capacity in probably February or so of 2020. We will start having pretty good, we'll probably be able to produce 363 inch a month, something to that effect. We'll have to see. It'll be slower in February, March, April, and it will pick up once the warm weather kicks in. That's something to look forward to. We do have a lot more painted ladies. We're also bringing on Philodendron Mayoi or Mayoi. I don't know how you would say that.
Yeah, that's what I say. I do the yoi at the end.
I never know. I'm so bad at it. I can't wait for Brett to join our team because he's so much better at pronouncing everything than I am. He just walks around the greenhouse. He's like, yeah, that's a, and I'm I just don't have that horticultural background, formal education, but that we have a lot new, and we're going to have plow manii. We're going to have more Veitchii as well. Lot of anthuriums for sure, which is something we haven't really carried in 2020.
Yeah, I haven't seen anthurium on your. So do you know about how many varieties that you'll be introducing next year of anthurium?
We'll probably have at least 4 anthuriums that come out next year. And there is one philodendron hybrid that we're working on, but we're still not sure if it's stable. So that's going to take more time. That may be an end of 2021 thing if we do even start talking about it. But so far it's pretty cool, but we'll see. It's only one plant, and I was given it helped through the process by somebody. So, or part of it was contributed. When you don't have pollen, you need pollen. So, the plant community is a great place. I think that those are going to come out. I think the biggest thing that you guys, our customers, and what people can be expecting is that in 2021, sometime probably in Q2, we will be probably the most technological advanced nursery as far as what we're able to share with our customers about the growing process. And I'm really
speak on that just real quick, because I did want to ask you, this year I have seen Gabriella Plants, you guys have invested so much money back into your business. And as a customer, I love seeing that. I'm here to say, I'm in it with you for the long run. And can you talk a little bit more about the technology, just as a little part B to the last question?
Yeah. There's a member of my staff who would probably have my head on a platter if I said all that much, but it will be, I will say, we will begin to explain it as we get into February, early February, most likely. We'll explain it at its core. But what we have right now, I won't necessarily go into how maybe a customer would interact with this, but what we have working right now is we have a system that is almost completed. We have a dev team of 5 people who have been working for us full time on making our own applications, web application. We call it GP app, although it's not a traditional app on your phone, but that's controlling everything from our watering to where we planted plants, to how many plants are on what bench. And what we're adding in the month of December is all the other grower data that, again, growers kind of think of in the back of their head, like maybe how often it's been watered, bringing in light sensors, and knowing the lux exposure week to week. That way, if there's a little bit of a lighter color, you could actually go back and reference that against some type of scientific material. But all of that is happening. And every time our team picks out a piece of inventory or plants on a bench or moves them from bench to bench, that's all logged with when it happened, where it came from, where it went to, and most importantly, who did it, who planted your plant, who fertilized it the first time, what is the list, and how many people total had watered that over its 3-month course in our greenhouse. I think that is all a fascinating story to tell, and I'll leave it at that.
I love that. I'm looking forward to your big announcement on December 12th. And Shane, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you spending some time with us, and I hope you come back again.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm so rambly and have so much to share. I feel like I could just sit here and maybe that's why we're maybe doing a podcast, because I could just sit here and talk for hours.
That's absolutely, I could sit here and listen to you all night.
All right. Well, I can count on one listener then. That's well, a good thing.
He has to stay too, so you have 2.
All right. Well, you just got to make sure it's on both phones so it shows up as 2 users. Okay? But no, I really appreciate every. I said this at the end of the Two Girls One Plant podcast. Like, every content creator to me is important. Not all of them I can do this type of thing with, especially based on scheduling and stuff like that. But all of this adds up to what the plant community is. The plant community isn't growers by themselves. Plant communities are your local shops, are the content creators, the person who had the answer on Reddit, who gave you that
just
answer.
The hobbyist.
Right.
Hobbyist, yeah.
And you're doing your specific part, and like, that's really cool. And I want to invest in the people who are, regardless of what portion of the plant industry they're interacting with, whether you're a content creator or a store. If there was some way I could help, I would most likely want to do it. And I think that it's important that we encourage a lot of people to stay involved in the plant community, because we're going to need that for sure.
I completely agree with that. And I just want to say again, you all see Shane here on my channel. You are all welcome to participate, from comment to collaboration, because everyone is really celebrated here, and that's what makes this channel so special.
Awesome. Well, I hope to look at more videos of you with amazing followers and discussing more plant content very soon.
Absolutely. Well, Shane, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go for the night. So have a lovely night and take care of your family. Take care of everyone there at Gabriella Plants. And we look forward to seeing what's coming out.
Awesome, guys. I hope you have a wonderful night. Okay.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yay, we did good.